everyone. Thank you for sticking for so long. My name is Marum, and I'll be talking about my project, my quest here at Trust, which I named Subfrequencies of Mourning. So I've been working as an artist, mostly on sound and performance, and I also DJ. My background is in nursing sciences, which I've practiced only for a year. And then later I studied new media art. At the same time, I do all this freelance artistic work. I'm also co-running a queer DIY space back in Lisbon called Planeta Manas, and doing a lot of work on harm reduction and mental health, which have been also widely present in my work. I'll be starting to talk about another project called Infinity Rug, which sparked the idea behind this research here at Trust. So Infinity Rug is this ongoing long-form ambient sleepover that me and Lou Drago have started 4 years ago, together also with the help of our producer Kira. And it started as domestic listening sessions throughout the pandemic, basically to address grief and mourning after the death of a very good friend of ours. To understand how could we somehow rethink rituals around death and togetherness in a period that was quite difficult for so many of us. It was difficult to gather. It was difficult to address these questions. So we wanted to create a different space of sociability and care using a tool that is a tool we've been using for years, which is music. They started as domestic events, but later we started doing them in public spaces. This is one of the very first ones that you see. It was in an hydropower plant in Italy. And it required also good sound systems. We wanted the sound to be kind of the primal communication force in these spaces. Yeah, you can see here like a big custom-built sound system that was in that hydropower plant. During one of these sessions of Infinity Rug, we noticed a group of deaf people attending, speaking in sign language. So these are nonverbal events. And it was interesting to see them first. I guess it was sweet and also sparked curiosity, trying to understand what were these people getting out of a space that is mostly, I guess, designed for people who enjoy being together around music. Given that it's not a club or also not pounding music, we wanted to understand what were they getting out of this experience, and also to create a connection and exchange. So this is how we've met Rita Matza, a choreographer and dancer that was part of this group. And I guess that was the start of this experience. Like, how was this experience of Infinity Rug for deaf people? And this led to, I guess, starting a research around sound, thinking about sound not only as an aural experience, but also as a somatic experience, a form of communication that maybe gets disregarded, especially even for many of us working with music. So these ended up being questions that I had as guiding questions throughout my research here at Trust. How do vibrations affect our bodies and mind, feelings and memories? What would a composition methodology based on somatic effects look like? So when composing, what could a methodology focused on vibrations look like? So taking into account the physical experience of sound before the oral experience of sound. And how can we incorporate this methodology in creating collective listening experiences that address grief? So what kinds of spaces would we be producing music of this sort? So I guess we've been mostly working in queer, migrant, BIPOC DIY spaces when thinking about as kind of like the target audience. So we wanted to understand also like what kind of sound systems or tools we needed, often these being expensive. So how can we develop like tools to make these experiences available for many? So the central concept of my research is, I guess, what we've learned with deaf culture, then delving into vibroacoustics and mourning and protest, how they somehow are connected. And the tools and technologies and practices that I've been working with, so modular synthesis, the sonic vigils, which is an ongoing practice I'll talk a little bit about, and also community workshops. So I start with deaf culture because I must confess I was completely ignorant, and I feel like it's still a source of amazing, I guess, ideas to see the world and interpret the world. Like Rita, one of the first things that I remember they told me was how communication styles every day are designed by people who are audiophiles. So talking with one another, how we interact with one another, we often forget that there's a lot of nonverbal communication. And often we forget also that there's other forms of communication that that can be used in order to welcome other people and make spaces more accessible. Thinking also like of I guess, queer spaces that often talk about diversity and accessibility. This is something that we realize being so overlooked. And then, I guess, during one of the Infinity Rugs, I remember thinking, I was listening to music next to my partner, who was extremely socially anxious, and we were by this group of deaf people that we had invited. This was already after we had met them in a previous event, and we would invite them to come in advance, select the best spot where the music sounds better. And she was struggling to engage with the space. She was feeling anxious with the people around, and I remember telling her to somehow try to ignore the voices and really focus on, or try to imagine the experience that these people next to her were having, to really focus on the vibrations in the wooden board of this boat gallery. And I noticed how calming this experience was. I guess this led me to start looking into vibrations, and there's actually a lot around these days with alternative medicine and also music therapy becoming so popular. And vibroacoustic therapy basically is the use of low frequencies, which range between 30 to 120 hertz, for therapeutic purposes. They're kind of like a stem. It's kind of a stem of like music therapy, but that instead of playing only music, maybe there will be like a vibratory plate or a vibratory bed where the person lays down, and then there's different frequencies that are inputted into these technologies. So this researcher skilled noted that VATs, so vibroacoustic therapies, are like a low-frequency sound massage that would assist in the reduction of pain and other stress-related symptoms. So just to maybe explain a little bit better what I mean about like frequencies. So these low frequencies that range between 20 and 100 hertz, basically it means that these waves vibrate between 20 and 100 times per second. And it is important to understand that different parts of the body vibrate at different, with different frequencies, which is what is called resonance. So there's a natural resonance to different kinds of materials, and so different parts of the body, be it like our lungs, the tips of our fingers, soft tissues, also vibrate at different frequencies, or the the maximum vibration possible created by resonance depends on the part of the body and its constitution. And the three theoretical foundations of the mechanisms of vibroacoustic therapy are the relaxation response, so that the resonance increases the circulation of blood in that part of the body, enhancing metabolism and relaxing the muscles. There's also a neuronal inhibition of pain, so it's seen that a stimulation around 60 hertz has shown to reduce pain and produce oxytocin. And there's also like a theory about cellular cleansing, so at certain vibrations, cells are somehow helped to secrete undesired materials. So there's a lot of claims around, I guess, vibroacoustic therapy. A lot of them are also like quite pseudo scientific, meaning that there's no real understanding if they have any effect or not in our health and in our bodies. But for me, it didn't really matter, or my interest is not so much understanding the practical deployment of like these therapeutic technologies, but starting to understand what is already being done in the field, what is being said in this field, and how could I use some of this knowledge to think about a different form of like composition around music, thinking about like low frequencies at the forefront of composition. So talking about low frequencies, I want to mention that these are the ones that you see here in the bottom of this chart. They are below 300 hertz. They are like slower waves of sound with bigger wavelengths. They have a lower pitch, so they're perceived as like bassy, boomy, and they travel bigger distances and are better at passing through materials. So this is the reason why they're better felt in the body than like a higher frequency is that might be immediately absorbed. And also to contextualize how we experience these frequencies, you can see at the lower end of the earring spectrum, the sub and bass. These are the frequencies that I'm interested in exploring, and these are frequencies that we can hear, but they're better felt than heard. Close to 20 hertz, as you see, we end up not being able to hear them, but we might still be able to feel them in our body. And maybe to also think how to historically contextualize or to think of like a possible genealogy of music and vibrations. Last year I had the opportunity to go to Notting Hill Carnival in London, which somehow curiously made me think about this project, because of course it's completely unrelated to the work that I'm doing, or unrelated to vibroacoustics or ambient music. But in a way, this is a kind of culture that has already been heavily focused on sub-frequencies and also mourning. This carnival being somehow a celebration started as a form of protest after the killing of a Caribbean black man in London. That continued into these carnivals where people are drawn by these gigantic sound systems with big bass subs, and the music being really focused on dub music, ska, reggae, music that is heavily felt in the body. And to produce like these kinds of sounds, I started working with modular synthesis. There's many ways of producing like sub-frequencies, but I wanted to somehow work with modular synthesis because it's a way of like building your own instrument rather than buying one that is already built. You get the freedom to kind of like bring different modules and explore sound with a different kind of freedom, rather than if I would have bought just a synthesis. And also because I had like found this software that is open source and free, which for me was also interesting because this being such a heavy, an expensive music production technology, I wanted to be able to experiment and play freely with it, and possibly even like share with people within my community this technology. I can show a little bit like my process producing music and VCV Rack, which is the software. Abrupt pause. So my first attempt in producing using the software, and also basically thinking or having quite present these principles of thinking first like sub-frequencies at the forefront of a composition. There's this dance piece for Nymphalis Etiopa, performed by Tania Carvalho and Mathieu Lacheux, two dancers that asked me to compose before they would choreograph this piece. And I wanted to create something that would be felt in their bodies, and from which they would then like choreograph based on that input that the sound was having mostly in their bodies rather than what they were listening to. And I'm just going to show a little excerpt. Thank you, Lina. Feel or this composition, but usually you need also a good set of subwoofers to feel these frequencies. And that leads me to this practice that I've been doing together with Lou and Kira, so the team of like Infinity Rug, which is the Sonic Vigils, which we do in this amazing studio here in Berlin of a friend, which has a custom-built hi-fi sound system, which is amazing to feel and experience sound. And we wanted to organize these regular monthly nonverbal listening sessions at this space as kind of like a regular encounter where we are present with sound and also somehow put into practice our mourning rituals and grief rituals, also share some readings and writings, and also continue collaborating with people from the deaf community. Beyond this kind of community practice done here in Berlin, I really want to highlight how important it is also my connection with this DIY queer space back in Lisbon, mostly because it also serves quite a disenfranchised community of queer, BIPOC, migrant people in Berlin. And in this space, we get also to run a lot of workshops, film screenings, sharing circles, harm reduction encounters. And so this being part of my practice and also a way for me to learn and experiment, I did recently a workshop called Hacking the Modular, really just to get people started into playing with VCV rack and also start experimenting with these kinds of sounds. And I guess for context, maybe connecting also with the Carnival of Notting Hill, I wanted to highlight that in the backdrop of these spaces, there's not a very easy reality oftentimes. There's a lot of discrimination that these people already experience on day-to-day life, and recently we've been experiencing several illegal raids by the police, which I think somehow make me think about how these practices of mourning and grief are inherently connected also with practices of like protest and resistance among these communities. So these are kind of like spaces that we intend to create as a space of encounter for people who already struggle and experience loss on an everyday life. Yeah, you should visit if you happen to be in Lisbon. We are at the moment like also organizing to build a bigger sound system, also taking into account that a more powerful sound system has a different impact on how we experience sound and who gets to access also the kinds of sounds we play. Yeah, that's where my quest with trust is at the moment. The current side quests right now are working on a live audiovisual performance with a friend, Latent Void, that will premiere at Festival Cometa in a couple months. Also starting artistic research with Rita Matza for a performance, kind of like starting a dialogue. How can I compose for a deaf performer, and how can we communicate and build together a performance? I'm also looking into building tools with transducers, which are basically machines that transform electrical input into physical input, so they could vibrate. So I would like to maybe create like wearable vibrational tools that could be connected to sound, and also looking into finding funding and residencies to continue working on this project. So yeah, thank you everyone. Thank you Callum and Lena. Thank you Billy. Thank you everyone. Yeah.